Let's talk about another very interesting phenomenon in the, not specifically insect, but more arthropod group. That being sexual cannibalism. Now, this is for educational purposes because apparently the internet can't handle people talking about sensitive topics anymore. This is for educational purposes. So, sexual cannibalism is a phenomenon that's very commonly seen among spiders. Black widows, specifically, are very famous for it. This is actually a picture of a black widow that my dad sent me. He said it's the biggest one he's ever seen. So, shout out to her. Gorgeous. But they're probably the most famous for this, but it's also seen in a bunch of other spider species, like jumping spiders. It's all I can think of off the top of the head, but black widows are very famous for this. Another insect that sexual cannibalism is very famous in is the praying mantis. And this is a picture that I took myself of one outside my mother's house, I think 2 years ago. I was very excited about this because it was only like my second or third time seeing a praying mantis in person. Fuck me. But they're a super cool insect. He actually crawled up onto my hand. I don't have a picture of that, but I was very happy with this insect. But again, they are very famously known for sexual cannibalism, specifically decapitating their mate. So another interesting aspect of this is it is always the females eating the males of the species. It's never the other way around. And there's likely a couple reasons for this, not just one reason all on its own, but there's a few different hypotheses floating around. One of those hypotheses being that it is very energetically expensive for the female to make and carry the eggs long enough for them to fully develop, as well as, depending on the species, caring for the young after they hatch. So, as with most animal species, it is the female putting in way more energy. It's way more of a commitment for the female of the species to both, generate and raise the offspring. And so often the males of the species contribute, sometimes they don't contribute, sometimes they just fuck off. And then sometimes they contribute by bringing food, like in a bunch of bird and mammal species. Or, one of the hypotheses is they contribute by being the food. So, after conception, I guess, after or during, sometimes during, which is very interesting, basically, while they fucking, the female starts to eat the male, and thus gets a energy boost in order to incubate, produce, etc. the eggs. Again, just that extra bit of energy and nutrition before she has to go through this whole ordeal of making, laying, and caring for the eggs. But that is not very beneficial for the male of the species because he's fucking dead. But there's a kind of hypothesis floating around for that as well. Basically, survival of the fittest. Fitness is measured by how many viable offspring you produce. That is, the more fit you are, the more offspring you produce, and vice versa. Now, you would think that being eaten would be counterintuitive to that, but there could potentially be benefits, because for some species that get eaten while doing the dirty, if they just sit there and continue to deposit gametes while they're actively being eaten, then there is more gametes being deposited, and so thus there's a higher chance of them producing more offspring. Basically, the longer they fuck, the more babies they get. And on both ends, it does take a lot of energy. So, in the case of insects and, other arthropods specifically, it's kind of unlikely that they would find another female and be able to mate again before they died, because most of the time after reproducing, insects don't have a super long life either way. So, it's better to just, once they find a mate, deposit as many gametes as they physically can, and then subsequently just get eaten, instead of like mating for a little bit, then leaving, and then trying to find another mate in order to deposit gametes in, but maybe you don't find that mate, and maybe you didn't get enough gametes in the first time. So it is beneficial in regards to fitness to just stay longer and try to just get as many gametes in as they can. And then there's the other side of that, whereas providing nutrition for the female, that makes the female healthier and stronger and more likely to produce viable offspring, therefore increasing fitness of both the male and the female. So while it may seem kind of counterintuitive, in a lot of species of insects and arachnids, it is beneficial to perform sexual cannibalism, and it's kind of fucked up, but it's super interesting.